Hey, good morning. Curtis Constantino, and I'm here to talk to you about worldview and objectivity. When I think about worldview and objectivity in teaching history, I do not think objectively means having no worldview. I do not think objectively means pure neutrality either. No historian or teacher approaches the past as a blank slate. Every instructor assumes about the truth, morality, human nature, evidence, and the purpose of education. So, my argument is this: objectivity in teaching history is not the absence of worldview, but is this disciplined practice of intellectual honesty, sourcing criticism, fairness, and accountability of evidence. In the reading of Lepopol's, it is helpful because he often connected to the idea that historians show the past as they really were. The goal that should still be the goal. Us historians should not become whether or add our own cultural interpretations into things. We should care about what happened in the past. At the same time, the article also shows us that Rank could even teach perfect objectivity. His sources were choices, personal life, religious backgrounds, and even his marriage influenced the way he wrote history. It does not mean objectivity is useless. It means objectivity, it should be understood, and it should be the goal historians pursue, not a condition they fully possess. This matters in the classroom because students need to see that history is not just a collection of facts, dates, names. Historians seek sources. We ask questions, build narratives, and decide what to leave and what not to leave, what to leave and what to put in there. The process is shaped by our worldview. However, it doesn't mean teachers are free to force evidence on whatever story they prefer. A good history teacher, a good teacher, should admit that perspectives exist, and they should require it. They should have careful evidence, honest interpretation, and fair treatment of opposing views. John's Fay's article, Christian Historians Are Activists, helped me really think this through and balance. He recognizes that history can shape students by criticizing and thoughtful church membership. He argues that historical thinking teaches people to evaluate information, understand context, and to think empathically. Recognize that change takes time. And remember that human beings are complex. I agree with that completely. In fact, that's what I tell my middle school students. Good history teaching should change how students think. In that sense, history teaching is never meaningless or value-free. At the same time, he also warns against turning the classroom to a place of preaching or activism, which makes me remind me when I teach Christianity, being a devout Christian myself, or when I teach about the Crusades, I usually remind my kids, hey, my job's to teach, not to preach. The classroom should help students learn how to think historically, not simply what to think. Practically, this affects how I teach. Like I said, when I teach religious history, the Crusades, Islam, Christianity, political context, any of the state standards I have to teach, I always tell my teachers, not my teachers, I always tell my students, it's my job to teach, not to preach. This does not mean that religion is removed from my lesson. No, it just, my belief of the religion is removed. My job is to help students understand what they believe, what people believed, the facts, not what I believe, and how those beliefs shaped over actions before students evaluate those actions. Even in my military background, it also flues my worldview. How I teach war and government. I know I bring a personal experience of war in the room. That experience can help students understand leadership, sacrifice, fear, and decision-making. But it can also be a bias if not careful. Objectively requires me to separate my experience from the evidence and let students evaluate the complexity of the past. Thank you so much. Have a great day.